Tonight, I would like to talk to you guys about passion. And the sermon is called When Passion Is Not Enough, or Passion Pit is the other word I have to describe it. So I'm going to begin by telling you a story. Once upon a time, there was a little kid. He was 11 years old, and his father decided to take him to Africa. And this kid, he's 11 years old, so he doesn't have much to him. He's looking to just have fun, and there's not much. He doesn't have the ambition yet. He doesn't have a lot of these things that we now in our young adolescence desire, or have. And this person goes to Africa. Now you know it was me, because I messed it up. But, so I go to Africa, and I tried to be a little epic, but it didn't work. So I go to Africa, and with my father, and I'm going on a dirt road, and I'm seeing, all these things for the first time. I'm in Kenya, and I see these poverty and the third world and all these things for the very first time. And it didn't really do anything to me. And I was just kind of like, I've seen this on film. And then all of a sudden, as I was driving, I saw a child that was around my age, and he was starving, and he looked like he was about to die. And in that moment, something came over me. It was like a righteous anger was filled inside of me. I was upset. I was angry that for some reason, just because where this child was born, he was born into a different lifestyle, and that he had to suffer. And because I was born somewhere else, I could live a life of prosperity and blessing. And it was irritating to me. It chafed my mind and my heart. I was angered. And in that moment, I cried out to God in the little faith that I had as an 11-year-old boy. And I said, God, this is not right. Send somebody to do something about this. And in that moment, I heard the Lord point his finger right back at me and say, son, I've chosen you. And from that moment on, passion was ignited on the inside of me. It was the spark, it was the kindling that set the fire inside of my heart. It set the passion, the burn, the fervor, the thing that I needed to strive towards, a calling, a destiny, a passion inside of my life. And that's how passions start. It starts as sparks, little teeny things that we see. Little things that we see and we say, that's not right. Someone needs to do something about that. Little teeny things that we notice, that we have gifts to fill. A lot of times, our purpose and our passion comes from us seeing a need and us saying, that's not right, someone needs to fill that. And sometimes God's saying, well, you see the need because maybe it's you that needs to fill it. Maybe you're the person with the right tools and the right things in their tool belt to accomplish the very need that you see. Sometimes we're called to the very things that we are asking God to have people called to. And we get this passion inside of us, this spark that starts a flame, and the flame starts, right? And I have a little box of matches to kind of illustrate this. Actually, Anna showed me how to do this, so let me try. Let me try again. Ah, yes. So passion starts from an ignition to a flame, and then it lights something in the inside of our hearts. It lights the wick of our hearts, and it starts something that's hot. It starts something inside of us, right? And it starts to burn. And when you look at fire, it's beautiful. It's powerful. There's a lot of things that happen inside of a flame. It's scary, yet it's exciting, yet it's beautiful, and it's all these things wrapped in one thing of science. And here it is in front of us. It's hot. It can be used for good, and it can also be used for destruction. There's so many things that are inside of a flame, as it is with our passions. Passions can go so many different directions in our lives. We can use it for good or for bad. There's things inside of us, sometimes if we don't know how to steward, we don't know what to do with it. So here's the flame inside of us, right? And it starts, and when it starts up, it burns brightly, and people see it, and they're excited about it. We're excited about it. We say, yes, I found something I'm called to do. I am ready to attack the world, grab it, and pull it down. Right? There's times in our life where we feel that way, where we get really passionate about something that we see in front of us, that there's something that ignites something inside of us, and we're like, yes, I'm walking that way, and I'm very passionate about it as well. And then over time, and the thing about the flame is that flame by nature spreads. So when you're passionate about something, a lot of times people around you who see that passion also begin to burn. Something inside of them begins to say, yes, I see that. I want that thing, that fire, that beautiful thing that burns inside of you. How do I get it? And then you begin to just talk out of passion. You show people that, yes, you can be like this too, right? A lot of us have experienced that in our lives at one point or another. But then over time, as time progresses, we kind of deal with this thing called reality that sets in. And this thing called passion or our purpose or our destiny, these things kind of all wrap up in one. We see it, and it's like this ideal that we want to grab, but we can't quite reach. You know what I'm saying? It's like we get passionate for a little bit, we get excited, and we start to move in a certain direction, but then time sets in, and things start to just pop up that stop us and that get in our way and that make it more difficult to reach the very thing we've been called to get to. And it's irritating, and a lot of times we just say, maybe it wasn't God. Maybe it wouldn't be this hard if I was really supposed to do it. And the once burning flame that was there and beautiful and bright and shining and contagious and spread like a wildfire is then blown out. And all that remains is the embers and the smoke and a few things that look like it once was, but isn't quite what it was. And we live in this tension between the ideal of what we dream to become, the ideal of our passions, in the reality of this now that we live in. The reality of that we live in a world that is broken, that we live in a world that hurts a little, that we live in a world that throws things at us that we don't necessarily deserve, that we didn't ask for, that we didn't really put on ourselves, but we just get it sometimes. And it's not fair. So we're in this tension between this ideal and this reality, and we have to negotiate somewhere in between. We have to figure it out. So how, in the midst of turbulence, when the death to novelty comes, when what once was exciting and new, it doesn't become so new anymore, and your environment that you were hoping to have with your passion doesn't look anything like your passion? How many of us are in a situation like that, where there was times in life that you're passionate about something, and then you're kind of walking along the path of life, step by step, and then you get to a place, and it's confusing, because this path looks nothing like what I want to do. This is a conundrum. What is going on? Right? We have these moments in life where it's like my environment looks nothing like my calling. You're like, well, then maybe it wasn't it to begin with. And I beg to differ, because a lot of times God works through a process. If you look at David, from the very time he was called to the very time he became king of Israel, was a long period of time. He was called at the age of 15 to become king of Israel by a prophet. And then in this dash of time, all the way to the age of 37, when he finally became the king of Israel, all of these things occurred in between to cause growth and to cause some things and challenges and turbulence and trials and tribulations, and everything that looked like he wouldn't be king happened. In this dash of time, God the entire time was still purposeful, and his destiny was still real. But sometimes we can't see it. Sometimes we don't know how to maintain our passion in the midst of the dash. But King David did something that I find very, very fascinating. He killed a giant. He did all these things. He was in Saul's court, the king of Israel, who he knew he was supposed to be, yet would honor him and would not touch the Lord's anointed. He would not covet his anointing. And then was chased out of the very temple, out of the very kingdom that he was supposed to reign over, by the king himself, trying to kill him. And he got to this place where he was in a cave. And none of his environment looked anything like his calling. None of his environment looked anything like being a king. As a matter of fact, he was sleeping on the ground in a cold, dark cave. So what did he do to maintain his passion? What did he do to keep the fire inside of him lit despite the wind, the waves, and all the things that came at him that he didn't deserve, he didn't ask for, that just happened? Well, in Psalms 27, 13 and 14, I'm going to read you something, a prayer that he prayed to God in the cave that kind of sums up a little bit of this process for him in his heart towards God in the midst of this dash that he was in. And it says this, "Teach me how to live, O Lord. Lead me along the right path, for my enemies are waiting for me. Do not let me fall into their hands, for they accuse me of things I've never done. With every breath they threaten me with violence, yet I am confident I will see the Lord's goodness while I am here in the land of the living. Wait patiently for the Lord. Be brave and courageous. Yes, wait patiently for the Lord." No matter what his situation was, he was a kneeling warrior. When he was in the dash, he found himself in a predicament that looked nothing like what he was called to be. It actually looked the very opposite. Yet he had courage to get on his knees before the Lord, stretch open his arms and say, "God, I don't get it. I don't understand why this is happening to me. They come against me. The very person I'm supposed to be in position of is attacking me and trying to kill me. Nothing seems right. Everything seems wrong. It seems like you've abandoned me. But God, I wait patiently for your will." And how many of us in this room can truly say that we've really done that? In the dash between the time of our calling and our passion and the time of our fulfillment of our purpose, are we really actually kneeling before the Lord and saying, "Not my will, but your will be done," and really mean it? Words are cheap. Especially, I find amongst Christians that we say a lot of things. We say a lot of these ideals and these, but they're not in our hearts. They're not really in our hands. We don't really walk out the very things that we say many times. But David did, because he was in the situation and he waited upon the Lord. And yes, he did become king of all of Israel, but it wasn't until he endured the process. So yes, we've talked about some of these ideals, right? Some that's like, yes, be passionate, be all these things, be courageous. But what does it look like practically? Because a lot of times I find, like I've just said, that words are cheap. And that we could say a lot of these things, but how do I walk it out? Boots in the ground. And in reality, how do I take the steps to become a passionate individual for God? So write these things down if you have something with you. I really encourage you to do this, because this will maintain you in the midst of the dash, when you're struggling, when you can't find hope, and when you think all things are lost. These are the things, these 5 things will sustain you in your heart and in your soul to enable you to continue on the path that God has for you, despite all the things the enemy will try to throw at you. Number 1, step back. Sometimes we're so caught up in the whirlwind of life that all we can see is this water bottle right in front of my face. And all I see is this. And how am I going to get past this? And this is just irritating. It's in the middle of my face. I see double. I don't understand why it's even there. It's supposed to nourish me, yet it's annoying me. I don't understand this. But many times it's because we're so focused on right here and we just need to do this. And then you begin to see what it's used for. Then you begin to see all the things that create it and maintain it and make it what it was really made to be. And that's exactly what happens with our process. Because if we step back and really look at the global situation of what our lives are, a lot of times we can notice a few things that really you're a lot better than when you once were. That you've actually come a lot farther than you think you have. That actually this one situation in the realm of your entire life is very minute compared to many things that you may endure. That this one thing is just a thing. in the spectrum of the line of your life, if this whole stage was your lifespan, it's this little line in the ground. It's a mere bump on the road. But sometimes we get so focused on the bump, we're like, how do we get over the bump? I don't understand it. Yada bada. We just need to look back and say, oh, it's just a bump. That's it. It's just a bump. It's just a season. It's just a moment in time that we have to wait through and wait patiently through and just watch God do what he does best by taking you through the seasons of trial and tribulation without you interfering. Because many times, as Abraham did, as many other people, we like to interfere with the purpose and plan of God in our lives. Because we think that he's not moving fast enough. We're like, God, this is a hill and I want to get over it. I'm going to do it myself. We step over it and then we trip and fall on our face and we have to take a while to get back up. Because we don't really trust him sometimes. And that's part of stepping back, is saying, I'm stepping back, and God, I trust that this hill is something that is small in my life and that you will be able to take me over and through. Number 2, look at the kindling. Sometimes when we're passionate and all these things and we start to lose it, all we have to do is look back in time and meditate on the things that started the passion. For me, there was a point in my life where I lost my passion for the lost. I lost it. I was confused. And I was like, my life sure as heck doesn't look like that right now. Maybe it's not there. But then all of a sudden, the Lord brought me back to that moment, that tender moment in Kenya, where I saw that little boy, and I had this moment where God spoke to me. This little intimate moment where God whispered into my ear and said, son, I've chosen you. And as soon as I began to meditate on that moment and begin to think of the kindling that started the fire in the first place, my passion reignites. If you begin to just meditate and think upon the very things that started the process, your passion will come back to you. But so many times we lose it because all we can see is the hill and we can't see the process. Number 3, persist without exception. I'm going to say that one more time. Persist without exception. Sometimes in life, as we're walking down the process of life, God gives us a flashlight. And with a flashlight, all we can do is see the few steps that are in front of us. We can't see a mile in front of us. We can only see the first few steps. And we take a step at a time, and sometimes it gets a little muddy and it gets a little stuck, and it's harder to move, and I just can't quite get farther, and what is going on? And at those moments, a lot of times we begin to just kind of give up. We begin to say to ourselves, well, it's just too tough. It's impossible. I've even done this before, and I went to somebody one time, and I said, man, listen, I've exhausted all options. I can't do this. And then he asked me, he said, but if you could, how would you? If you could do it, how would you do it? I said, well, if I could do it, I would do this, this, this. And he goes, well, why don't you try? Why don't you persist without exception? That no matter what comes at you in life, that we have this tenacity on the inside of us that says, if I can't run anymore, I'm going to walk. If I can't walk, I'm going to crawl. If I can't crawl, I'm going to put one arm forward. I'm going to pull myself. If I can't do that, I'm going to put out my tongue and I drag myself along. I'm going to do whatever it takes to reach the goals that God has for my life. No matter what it takes, I will persist without exception. Persist without exception. A tenacity inside of you that says, no matter what comes my way, I'm going to fight through it. Number 4, shift your thinking. Because passion is an emotion. And emotions are derived from your thinking. And your thinking is derived from your intimacy with God. So, shift your thinking. Sometimes we make these excuses like, no, like, I can't be passionate about this. Like, your emotions start to take hold of you, and it starts to become, your passion begins to kind of become like a wind. It blows with however you feel. I feel happy, I feel sad, I feel whatever, I feel all these things, and you kind of just blow, and your passion doesn't really become sustainable because your emotions aren't derived from the right thinking. Because if we were thinking correctly, when a challenge comes our way, we say, okay, how can I grow from this challenge? How can I persist through this challenge? What can I learn from this challenge? What are the things that I can gain through this challenge? God, what are you trying to tell me through these challenges I have in my life? And when you start to think positively about all the things that come your way in life, your emotions begin to follow. Your emotions begin to change, and the passion becomes sustainable. It becomes a reality. It becomes more than emotion. It becomes a part of your being. As the same thing is with joy and happiness. Happiness is a feeling. I'm happy. But joy is a way of life. Joy is a heart condition. Joy is something that's like, I feel great today. And it's not because the sun is shining and I'm going out to play volleyball. It's because God's inside of me and I'm ready to go. It's a different dynamic. The same thing goes with passion. Passion should not just be an emotion in your life that blows with the wind, but it should be something that's sustainable and a part of who you are solically. Another way to shift your thinking, look at your environment. Who are you surrounded by? Who are your friends? Just as a fire, I want everyone to close your eyes. I want you to picture this with me. So you see a fire, right? Burning brightly, a little campfire. And then over time, the fire kind of burns out and you see the embers at the bottom, the coals. But one of the coals is separated from the bunch. And the coals that are all glowing together, but there's one that's over here that's kind of dull and doesn't have the flame inside of it anymore. But as soon as it gets put back with the rest of the coals that are burning, it begins to reignite and light up and be what it once was. Open your eyes. That is exactly what happens with us in our relationships. The moment we get away from the people that are passionate about God, the people that are also passionate about life, the people that are pursuing God and His destiny for their life, the moment we get away from that and we surround ourselves with people that don't represent that is the moment we become dull. So if you're not around people who are passionate, no wonder why you have no more passion. Because coals ignite coals. Fire creates heat which burns inside of the coals, which makes us passionate. So get around people, associate with people that are passionate and that are burning and that have some of that fire inside of them. And because once you get the fire inside of you, another coal will come along that is dead and dry as a bone, and you will ignite them. Your life story may just be for a few people. The challenges you go through, the things that you see, the things that you experience, have you ever thought that maybe, just maybe, you've had to experience some of these things because somebody else needs to hear it? Because somebody else has a wound and they're bleeding. And you used to have this wound too, but you have a scar. And a lot of times we're ashamed to show our scars because it's a part of our past and it's dirty and it's gross and I don't want to show anyone. But what did Jesus do? When he came down from the cross, he said, touch my hands, feel the holes. And to the one person that doubted the most, he said, touch my side, one of the most intimate places of the body. He wanted him to touch and see what he experienced. And so many times, We have a fully naked Jesus trying to work through a fully clothed church. Because we're not willing to show a scar. Because we're scared that people are going to judge us, that people are going to say, you're not right. But maybe there's somebody who's bleeding just as bad as you once were that needs to see the scar to ignite a fire inside of them. Maybe they need to see your coal burning just so they can get a little taste of what fire feels like. Think about it. And the last thing and the most important thing that we need in order to sustain passion in our lives is faith in God's promises. Just as anyone else, sometimes we lay promises on people and people give us a promise and we're like, we want to believe them because a promise is something that is permanent, it's sustainable, it's real, it's I promise to do something for you. It means I will not break it. Come hell or high water, no matter what happens, I will not. And in human imperfection, we find many promises that have been broken. But in God's perfection, his promises cannot be. Because he cannot contradict himself. So, how do we hold on to God's promises? And what are some of God's promises? Well, here's some verses that we can hold on to. When we're confused, Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. They are plans for good and not for disaster, to give you a future and a hope." When you're confused and don't know what's next, just like, I don't know why I'm even here. Hold on to that verse. Grab it and say, God, you promised this for me. You promised that you would give me a good future. God, you promised these things inside of my life. I'm holding on to it. When you're weak, Isaiah 40:29-31, he gives power to the weak and strength to the powerless. Even youths will become weak and tired, and young men will fall in exhaustion. But those who trust in the Lord will find new strength. They will soar high on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. When you're weak and you're tired and you don't want to go anymore and you lost your ambition, you don't feel like moving because you're just tired of fighting, hold on to that promise. Read it to yourself and say, God, you promised to give me strength when I was weak. When you're poor, when you don't have a lot. Philippians 4:19 says, "And this same God who takes care of me will supply all of your needs from his glorious riches, which have been given to me in Christ Jesus." Hold on to that and trust that his promises will come through for you because he is God. And the real question is, do you trust him? Because if you do, and you hold on to these promises, God will do something in your life. He will change you. Passion is a beautiful thing given by God. Many people live their entire lives never really finding their passion, walking through it and never really searching for it. And some people live their lives finding their passion, but it died. And they lived their entire lives and died with never living the fulfillment and the realization of what they were called to be. People, you guys in this room, I know, some of you in this room, your passion has been stolen from you. Some of the women in this room, your passion was stolen from you by a guy that abused you, a guy that didn't treat you right. He stole your passion away, and you've never been able to get it back. Some of the guys in this room, a dad that left you, a dad that never really loved you like he should have, a dad that wasn't like your friend's dad, who never really gave you the support you needed, and your passion just kind of died because you didn't have that fatherly support to bring you through. Some in this room, your passion has been stolen from you by the circumstances of life that you didn't deserve. By some things that you didn't ask for, you didn't want, it was nowhere on your radar, but it came and it stole your joy, and it stole your passion, and it stole the very thing that kept you going. And ever since that moment, you've been walking through life saying, God, I don't have it anymore. God, I'm done. I'm spent. There's nothing inside of me. I have no fire in me. I'm tired. I'm weak. I have no strength. It's stolen from me. I didn't deserve that, God. These things happened to me that I didn't want. I didn't deserve. These people treated me wrong. This person spoke death into my life. They told me I'd never be somebody. They said I'd never be this thing. They said I could never accomplish this thing. And I knew inside of my heart that I wanted to, but he stole it from me. She stole it from me. So many people in this room have had those experiences in their life. And I'm telling you right now that God is looking upon you with his eyes and saying, my child, my son, my daughter, I love you. I have a destiny for your life. I have a purpose for your life. There's something inside of you that I want you to accomplish and achieve. There's things that I've called you to do. There's people I've called you to reach. There's places I've called you to go. I love you. Will you trust me? Will you put your hands up and let me lead you through life and take you through it? Are you willing to commit to the process so I can build the gems of character inside of you that you will need in the fulfillment of the very calling you've been made to be? There's a doctor inside of one of you in this room. There's a missionary inside of one of you in this room. There's a preacher inside of one of you in this room. There's a lawyer inside of one of you in this room. There's a billionaire inside of one of you in this room. There are so many gifts and callings and things that are inside of every single one of you. And you can see them happen in your life. You can see the fulfillment of these callings inside of you if you just commit to the process. And say, God, lead me. Your will be done. Sit back. Be content. Be just as passionate about the reality of your now as you are as passionate about the reality of your future. Be passionate about what's in your hand, not just what's beyond it. And trust in God and watch what he does inside of your lives. Watch the flame begin to flicker. Begin to grow and grow and grow, and become bigger and bigger. And your joy gets happy, it gets better and better. You feel warmer and warmer, and other people see it. And you fulfill the very thing you were made to be. Because every single one of you were made to be something. None of you in this room have no purpose. So if you're in this room tonight and you need kindling again, you need a fire inside of your heart. You need something to push you forward. You need something to just light you up and propel you into something greater than what you're in right now. I'm telling you right now that tonight there's an anointing in this room to light a fire inside of your soul, to light a fire inside of your heart, to propel you into the very thing you've been made to be. The question is, will you come forward and ask for it? And there'll be people up here on the sides during this worship set that will pray for you and will pray with you. But during this worship, I want you to meditate, and I want you to think, and I want you to seek the Lord's face as David did and say, God, I will wait patiently for you, Jesus. I will wait upon you to lead me, to guide me, and to take me on my calling. Lord, I am sitting back and I'm on the ride of my life. Show me what to do. So as these guys come up and minister, I invite you to come forward and receive prayer, to have that fire rekindled inside of your life. For the missionaries in here going to the Dominican Republic and Haiti and North Carolina, if there's one of you in this room or a few of you that said, I'm not really feeling it, I'm not. Tonight you can have a passion lit inside of you. You can have something renewed inside of you. You can have a passion for people that you never had. You can have a passion for that music that you put down a long time ago that you never had. You can have a passion for your family that you never had. You can have a passion for all kinds of things that you used to have or have never had that you've just lost or never had to begin with. Tonight, it can happen. So I just want to invite you guys to come up and minister and meditate upon what God's going to do in your life tonight.